Okay. Greetings, everyone. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. We're going to continue on with the dishonor at the local post office. And of course, it's not any kind of a criminal accusation or anything. Like I mentioned before in the earlier videos, this is just a matter of resolution and resolve in peaceful terms. And it's for a full acquittance and discharge. I'm not going in this to charge anyone. And so it's very disturbing when we have, like I've mentioned, postal workers that are supposed to be professionals in communication skills that cannot communicate in common language, plain writing, because they don't believe they have to know any more than what they do know. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect. And when I get done with this video tonight, I'm going to come back with another stream on the Dunning-Kruger effect, Jungian archetypes and stuff. So in the meantime, I want to thank everybody for joining me tonight. Make sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. If you're on Hecklebus, get over to El Perro. And if you're on El Perro, get over to Hecklebus. Do the same thing. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Help the algorithms. And, of course, the PayPal link is in the details section below. There's a couple of them. One is for those that have PayPal. The other one is for those that don't have PayPal. And, of course, anything is appreciated. Share the love if you want. And in the meantime, we're going to get started with this in regards to the exclusive jurisdiction and how it works throughout the jurisdictions that we're dealing with. And so one of the first things I want to do is, those that are familiar with me, my journey has been a long one, and just this last 7 years is a totality of the culmination from an event on August 24th, 2016, where that jurisdiction was violated because of a process that these people do not comprehend whatsoever. And so we're going to go over a few things. And one of the things I mentioned here a few videos back is the interlocal agreement with the local municipality. And that I found to have expired on the 30th of June or something like that this year, June 2023. And if that's no longer active, and that's the most current one I can find, I've got to seriously question whether they have any jurisdiction to even mailing things from the city or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is, on January 23rd was the sentencing date for that case. And on that day, I walked in with a few documents that I'd drawn up. And one of the documents I'm going to go over is a statutory declaration of true name. Statutory declaration of given appellation, given appellation. That's a different term most people are not familiar with. It's a calling. It's the same thing as a calling. That's the family name with your given name. It's like the natives talking about the spirits in the sky. So their appellation is spirits in the sky. Of course, they had their own internal tribal languages that they used to describe each other. But when they talked about the spirits in the sky, they talked about all the spirits in the sky. Even though they warred with each other as tribal units, they realized all in one that there was spirits in the sky. That was a simple comprehension, and that's an appellation. Iowa State, Blackhawk County Statutory Declaration of Given Appellation comes now a man called Keith. Date of conception approximately 9 months prior to August 20th, 1966 AD. This man, with the given appellation Keith, the intellectual property of Jesus Christ, described in attachment, a natural and free man of the land, of the land, of the land, of the land, do solemnly and sincerely declare the following truth. I am Keith, sentient, natural-born, adult living man with the given appellation Keith. I hail from and was adopted by the House of Little. I, too, retain status of the hereditary house of Conrady. Keith is my lawful given appellation by birthright. I am who I say I am, not who or what any person, statutory legislative policy enforcer, corporate administrator, or government document says I am. I am created only by God and am subject only to my Creator, and my name is the intellectual property of Jesus Christ. I am a natural and free man of the land, unbound by all statutory and legislative restraints. I am a transient traveler in this world, which I am not of. I absolutely bear no relation to the fictitious and trust entities of Keith Orland Little, to include but not limited to the following: K. Orland Little, Orland Little, Keith Little, Keith O. Little, K. O. Little, etc. These are but the name of an artificial person or ens legis. I am not the secured party, creditor, holder in due course, or authorized representative for the juristic person entities of Keith Orland Little. Remember, they created that. I can merge it in a creation of my own known as the Keith Orland Little FBU. I am the creditor of that person. Their record will show that I am the benefactor that placed the facts to the record for their beneficiary. So in those situations, I can't claim to be the creditor without knowing so myself. But I do know in that trust operation, I am the benefactor, and that the facts are the credible elements. I am not an accommodation party, nor a surety for the debts of Keith Orland Little. Keith is the correct, given, and lawful appellation for myself, the natural flesh and blood being, and is unique, distinct, and separate from any unlawful government-created fictional commercial version of my calling that resembles my calling. And folks, when you fill out that Social Security application and they ask you for the first and last name, you're the one that puts those data elements in there. And it was because your mom and everybody else in society sent you to school to teach you how to write that name, so that one day when you needed to communicate with other people, you would be able to do so in a certain style. You would have a class about you. You would be classy. They would take credit for you because of the name. This distinction is lawfully established and recognized in this public record under oath. And the ad hominem is the disposition of what you are and where you belong, of the land, and you are a living soul of the land. That is always defined first and foremost in the scientific classifications under animals as a man. This distinction is lawfully established and recognized in this public record under oath. I shall at all times, in all records, deeds, documents, and other writings, and in all actions, proceedings, meetings, and like other, as well as in all dealings and transactions, on all occasions whatsoever, use and subscribe the said God-given appellation Keith only, so relinquished as aforesaid, to the intent that I am to be called, known, or distinguished by the God-given Christian appellation Keith only. See, it's when you combine that given name with the family name that it creates a legal name consisting of both the first and last name. The two become one. It's a literal marriage. But let's make sure that it's distinguished infinitely and definitely from wedlock. I authorize and require all persons at all times to designate, describe, and address me by my correct God-given Christian appellation only, which is not to be mingled, merged, or confused with Keith Little or any other derivative of. I rescind all signatures of Keith Little executed in my natural and representative capacities on any documents or instruments made in my natural name or fictitious legal entities that have failed to fully disclose risks, perils, and responsibilities within them. I, Keith, am my own authority under God, and no man or fiction has jurisdiction over I, a living man. I am recognized and known by God-given Christian appellation Keith with a family heritage of Little. If I choose to respond, it is only to such Christian appellation of Keith, and that's an error in grammar, and not Mr., Sir, or others. I am not a corporation nor a person. Therefore, no legislative court shall ever obtain personal jurisdiction over me. Responding to my appellation will not allow statutory jurisdiction, and no subject matter jurisdiction shall apply to me. I cannot use copyrighted codes, statutes, rules, or regulations against any legislative or executive body. Therefore, no legislative nor executive body can use said copyrighted codes, statutes, rules, or regulations against me. But I can use them to bring us to a meeting of the minds to allow for the recognition of an impossibility that cannot be fulfilled. You cannot get personal jurisdiction over me. It is an impossibility in your system. It has to be voluntary. And said court fails to have in rem jurisdiction over I. I have no residence within any geographical jurisdiction. I do not reside with any political jurisdiction, and I'm not a magistrate of any federal, foreign, fictional government, so I have no entourage for any residency. I keep house within the geographic Iowa Republic, or in whatever republic I so choose. Therefore, there is no state within a state of federal jurisdiction, nor is there a political overlay of federal area or postal zone improvement plan. Therefore, there is no federal jurisdiction over me, nor is there obtainable any venue jurisdiction over me. That's the original venue, is the international venue, and the post office is an inland marine installation. I am not of the Marines. I am above the Marines. I am above the Navy. I am upon the nations, a prophet, so sanctified and ordained before I was cast from my mother's womb, because he gave me that message. He called unto me. Do you know that name that he called unto me? I fear not, for he called me by thy name. I am his. Who the fuck is anyone else? I'm not a public office holder or a franchise. I have a right to freely, without permission or licenses from any government agency or corporate entities. I recognize the use of Federal Reserve notes as contraband and gambling tokens issued, maintained, and controlled within the private realm of a private corporation. Therefore, I do not own, handle, nor utilize any of them outside the rule of necessity, which is a rule of common law of the land of which I am, originating well before the establishment of the British colonies on American soil. Therefore, using only barter, silver, and where absolutely necessary under said agent rule, Federal Reserve notes which are not of substance, no legislative court or executive agency shall obtain any substantive jurisdiction over me. I recognize that the United States has been bankrupt since 1933, and there is no lawful money of exchange available to pay any debt. Today, since there is no lawful money of exchange available, you have to negotiate the terms. That is literally barter. Or to pay fines, fees, licenses, penalties, child support, alimonies, court costs, etc. I cannot be a contemnor, as I am in contempt of nothing. No private man, no corporate body or agency thereof can demand what I do, what cannot be done, that I do what cannot be done. You cannot demand that I act in person. I have no such person. As it is impossible to pay for anything, no fictional corporate government body can demand that I do the impossible. Therefore, no legislative court or executive agency shall obtain any legislative or executive jurisdiction over me. I am not aware of the existence of any judicial branch of any level of true Republican government. Folks, the judicial element, in fact, is a neutral and independent office within the United States Postal Service. The United States Postal Service is the registered agent for the post office. And that is not the United States Post Office. That is the post office, the global post office, the international post office. It is an international realm in every incident where they use an address. It is the extension of a federal exclusive jurisdiction by use of the various different address formats. And it's right on the document, right on the face of the envelope. And you are doing it because you were taught in school how to write your name, so you could put it down with a secured street name security that is already bonded in a trust, thereby acting similarly like an agent of that postal trust, as a postal agent, a common carrier. Nor is any available to me. Not in the Republic. There's no Republic standing at this time. Congress walked out sin die. That Constitution of the United States is subject to the Congress of the Universal Postal Union either way. Since Congress walked out sin die, it only does one other thing. It enforces the admiralty side for the American United States, because they have no actual judicial maritime republic. I am aware that any alleged statutory jurisdiction or courts are unlawful and cannot exist under the Constitution's jurisdictional mandates. I am also aware that this hidden jurisdiction has no known defense rules and is coerced against unwitting people by trickery and deception perpetrated by corrupt judges who are banking representatives using twisted legal jargon to capture jurisdiction to imprison flesh and blood bodies so prisoners' bid bonds can be sold for illegal profit and gain to corporations, world banks, and nations via the U.S. District Court. Told you, folks, I am not playing games. Haven't been playing games. You think they haven't come after me for a reason? You think the language here is strong? You think it's sending a verified and certain, clarified message? So, I am not a U.S. citizen, a United States citizen, a 14th Amendment citizen, nor in any other manner do I citizen. I am, therefore, not an enemy of the state under any fictional corporate charter, regulations, and no corporate jurisdiction is obtainable over this living man to condemn this living man to a category of enemy of any state. My Constitution is the Holy Writ. I claim only one color, that being the color of white, in the form of a flag of truce. So that piece of paper that's blank, feel free to come get me on that bench warrant. Feel free to try to say that I haven't paid them fines, fees, and penalties and come get me and throw me in jail, because I will do the exact same thing as Martin Luther King and write from jail my own handwritten habeas corpus. Making known to all that I have no controversy with any. As I said, full acquittance and discharge. I have no license to operate contrary to the law. Law and legal. Legal means the authority given by one to do something that would otherwise be unlawful. Therefore, the license is the ability to operate contrary to true law. I have no permit to temporarily suspend true law. Show me yours. Therefore, no admiralty or maritime or martial law jurisdiction is obtainable over this living man. Martial law is very specific because, again, it's a military admiralty regulatory system through the post office and its postal service, a contract with the United States, and published and publicized as the United States Postal Service registered agent. All post offices are inland marine installations. It is, in fact, martial law for communication purposes to make sure you're not committing espionage and trading with an enemy. I observe only the true laws brought forward by the ancient and holy writ, engulfing all established within principles of the 10 Commandments and the later commandments to love the Lord my God with all my mind, soul, and body, and to love my neighbor as myself. This is my political establishment. Therefore, no fictional political jurisdiction is obtainable over this living man. And I want everybody to know that love thy neighbor as thyself is I am the living soul. The man is the embodiment, and the man is my neighbor. The man is the neighbor of the living soul. Those are the two elements. The two become one and quit fighting within themselves. Jacob's ladder. You have to learn your power and start demanding your birthright. I exist only in and respond only to my God-given Christian appellation, Keith. I do not recognize nor give cognizance to any fictional corporate entity, nor do I recognize any of their agents. No fictional quasi-governmental agency can obtain parity with me. Therefore, no jurisdiction of agency is obtainable over this living man. I am in my true character, a private man upon the soil, maintaining only as a private man can the right of soil. I am not a reflection, image, fiction, or other person. I own and maintain my own person for purpose of contracting in the realm of commerce in law, in a lawful and upright manner. Upright manner, standing. My word is my bond when dealing with men. I have unlimited power to contract. I offer my autograph when contracting with fictional entities in commerce. Said signature, sig, no. Nature, alive. So you're not alive by that signature. Means no nature, thus not alive. It is a bond, age, offered into debt and death. For this reason, such scribble is called cursive writing. Cursed communication with the dead, the fiction. A government, agency, principal, court, or corporation cannot possibly interact with a living, breathing, flesh and blood, spiritual being, which I declare that I am. This is not possible in any way, as one is dead and one is alive. I require all interaction with I to be man to man, mano y mano, force majeure. I am not in your war. By being responsible for my own actions under true law, I exercise my personal rights, referred to by Thomas Jefferson, and maintain my lawful standing impeccable under law. I do not yield character jurisdiction over this man and claim common law jurisdiction. I do not consent and waive the benefits of all other jurisdictions. I retain my right at all times to live a naturally lawful and peaceful life. And I make this solemn declaration conscientiously, believing the same to be true and by virtue of the provisions of the Statutory Declarations Act of 1835. By virtue. I, Keith, a living man, hereby gives notice to any and all officials that if this document, Statutory Declaration of True Appellation, is not rebutted within 30 days from the day filed, then this document, Statutory Declaration of True Appellation, shall be law. It's unrebutted. Failure to rebut the truths, each truth and every truth herein within 30 days from date ascribed on final page of this affidavit will constitute such as the law. Law of principle applies. Service on principle is service on agent. Service on agent is service on principle. Care of P.O. Box. Notice the zip code is zeroed out. Notice it says autograph and it identifies it as a seal. It operates in 2 jurisdictions. And then you've got the date. It says, Keith, a living man, did present himself before me. Is known to be the living man operating in a capacity for autograph described herein, who executed. So if I'm the one that executed, who the fuck is you as an administrator? The foregoing acknowledged the contents thereof and executed the same as his free will act and deed, subscribed to me before the undersigned. And notice, first-hand witness, first-hand witness, first-hand witness in triplicate. And when you do that, see that seal thing? When you look on my documents, when I construct them like this, I put my autograph and then I put a red thumbprint and I attach it to the last letter. All 3 witnesses did the exact same thing. I want to take a minute to thank everybody for joining me. I've been rambling on that document for a half an hour, but I'm telling you, that's the basic foundation of my research as I was doing it back then, and it continued on, and this is where I'm at today. This is what started the culmination of where I'm at and the post office and all the different jurisdictions. I think I know very well what I'm talking about because ain't nobody rebutted it yet in any platform I've ever presented any of it. You can look on my Facebook page, and every time I talk about jurisdiction, they're all still there. They all have standing. Anyway, the link is down there for anybody who wants to come up on panel and chat. I want to welcome everybody. Lucius McGoldrick, Bull Hydrus, Truth Empowerment, Veracid. Who else? JLV. Appreciate everybody showing up. Make sure to hit that 5-hut. Make sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And anybody that wants to share some love, there's always the PayPal links down in the details section here below. And we're going to continue on because, like I said, this jurisdiction element has to be understood sooner or later. People need to start comprehending this in order to be able to assert their abilities, not your rights, but your abilities and duties to others to maintain a peaceful environment and try to prevent people come at you in war. Like I said, I went down to the post office. I'm doing everything in peace. But because the other guy is in such a battle with himself and his own comprehension that he has this Dunning-Kruger effect, thinks he already knows what's going on and refuses to accept the new information I'm trying to give him. Just like the prior gal. Oh, I hope you take these codes here and do some research so you can educate yourself. Oh, no, that's not going to happen. They'd much rather call the police and then call you a sovereign citizen without even knowing what a sovereign citizen is either. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. So again, we're going to be talking about that after this video. I'm going to pop back up and we're going to go over some Dunning-Kruger stuff as it relates to the Jungian archetypes. So let's get back to this other stuff. Let me see where we're at. We got done with that. Okay. This is as it relates to travel. Okay. And so as it relates to travel, it's talking about that time I got pulled over seven years ago, traveling along the postal roads that carries exclusive jurisdiction and at a point where there's no address. At a place where there was no address. See, it was on a postal road in front of certain places, but they couldn't use that address. They needed the one I was using. And that's on the ID. See how that works? But see, they promulgate that because they've got this thing called an interlocal agreement that they have jurisdiction. And that's exclusive federal jurisdiction, but they're issuing municipal corporate bonds. Because you're claiming resident because you gave them that ID, and that's evidence that you're a resident. And under exclusive jurisdiction, they maintain jurisdiction over everybody on the property. Except diplomatic travelers, ambassadors of God, prophets that are speaking for God, because they can't supersede that. Their exclusive jurisdiction has a limitation. That limitation is known in Congress, Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, with all them different clauses. We're going to be going over that. Before we do that, I want to get on to the next one, which is the terms that they're using in these documentations when it comes to this stuff for using that address and everything. Because we all know it's all commerce, right? Let's get it very clear, folks. Commerce, as in merchant, with merchandise, means trade, traffic, and transportation in the jurisdiction of the United States. Okay? In the jurisdiction of the United States. The United States is a corporate entity located in Washington, D.C. Congress established the postal roads and needful places and buildings between a place in a state and a place outside the state, including a place outside the United States. Or B, in the United States that affects traffic and trade, traffic, and transportation described in subclause A of this clause. So everything that's being perpetrated in the states and between states, including place outside of the United States, that affects commerce, merchandise, which is also trade of merchandise, trafficking of merchandise, transportation of merchandise. Let me show you something else. '49 U.S. Code, Subtitle 1, Chapter 1, 107. U.S. Code 107, Federal Transit Administration. What did we talk about? Transit. Remember our video here not too long ago about transit? Remember the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union, wherein freedom of transit is guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union. That's the Postal Union, along all of the postal roads, for all needful places and buildings, up and down every jurisdiction around the world. And it sits in the Transportation Code. Let's look at the next one. That was U.S. Code. This is the codification, Electronic Code of Federal Regulations, not the U.S. Code, but the CFR, that supports and administrates the enforcements. Federal Transit Administration, Department of Transportation, DOT. Again, one of the people that we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking to, Postmaster, Mayor, Chief of Police, County Commissioner, Sheriff, City Attorney, County Attorney, State Attorney, State Adjutant General, Secretary of State, Department of Revenue, Governor, Bureau of Vital Statistics, U.S. Department of State, Bureau of Consular Affairs, Homeland Security, Department of Defense, President, FBI, Secret Security Police, Interpol, Director General of the International Bureau, up and down the line, folks. Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Pentagon, UN, the International Parliamentary Union, all of them. I'm done playing games. So let me check the board. I don't see anybody that wants to come up. In regards to the automobile, there are certain things that need to be taken care of as it relates to the import-export, and they're calling you an exporter that imported certain things into the United States when that was already done, and it's the paperwork that's in error. That's all it is. The United States is in error. The states are in error. And you have to give notice to the United States that, hey, the states pointed out an error to me. They're trying to hold me liable when I know I'm not. And so here's their error. Can you help fix it? Because they're not listening to me. But again, like I said, that statement of declaration of statutory declaration of given appellation, That clarified those jurisdictions. And I've done nothing but continue further clarifying those jurisdictions throughout the last 7 years. I know very well what I'm talking about when it comes to these transportations and the commerce and everything and what it's all about. Again, taxes are duly paid by stamp. Correct. It's United States. And every address provides for a postal unit, a box. Guess who regulates the seizure laws? When they want to seize your property, again, that address. You know, that little glove box in your car? If you give them the right to search, they're only supposed to search what they can openly see. So when they start opening the trunk and the glove box, sorry, that was under lock and key. You had no authority to do that. I gave you permissive view under the onus probandi that you could search what you could visually see. See, that's their onus probandi on these First Amendment auditors. If it's public view, then it's public. That's why they have the issue with the tinted windows. That's a violation of your right to enforce your privity by saying, no, this is not a public vessel. This is a spiritual vessel. So let's go on to the Constitution. We should all know this one. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises as it relates to imports and exports, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. Let me ask you, does your state pose a 7% excise tax? Or is there a variance between the states because they don't comprehend this Constitution? Oops. Guess what? You know, the states are only enforcing their power to put their own weights and balances into the system. Guess what? That goes according to the population. Guess what? You know, all those immigrants, that has to do with the Indians and 3/5 of a vote. That doesn't have to say that the Indian only gets 3/5 of a vote. What it actually states is that according to the population census, if there are 100,000 Indians, they can place 3/5 of those votes in the electoral poll and count them as votes. Oops. Do you think your vote counts still? Of course. Of course you do. You do think it counts because that's what you believe. But no matter what the facts are that are put before you, you're going to refuse to believe that and continue voting and continue crying about paying taxes. Grant. I'm Ma Grant. And you're paying tribute to a patronage. Oops. Do you think people might have it backwards? Or do I? Let's take a look at the next one. The Commerce Clause. Let me size this down a little bit. Okay. Congress has often used the Commerce Clause to justify exercising legislative power over the activities Are they allowed to do that under God? Is that taking authority over another man and his movements, his actions, when his actions speak louder than your fucking words? Leave your filthy paws off me. Of states and their citizens, leading to significant and ongoing controversy regarding the balance of power between the federal government and the states, proven by the differences in the excise taxes. The Commerce Clause has historically been viewed as both a grant of congressional authority and as a restriction on the regulatory authority of the states. Constitution does not explicitly define the word commerce. Oops. Oops. So do you suppose they converted the taxes, duties, imposts, and excises from the international level, Her Majesty's Union Custom Codes, to securitized instruments, calling them commercial instruments? Oops. Leading to wide debate as to what powers Section 8, Clause 3 grants to Congress. Some argue that it refers simply to trade or exchange, while others claim that the framers of the Constitution intended to describe more broadly commercial and social intercourse between citizens of different states. That's why you see their statutory codes say in the state. And yet the federal code we just saw says, or the Constitution we just saw says between the states, code, between the states and outside of the United States. So let's look at it. The Supreme Court has interpreted the phrase among the several states to exclude. Does that sound like exclusive? Transactions that occur wholly within a state. The Supreme Court has interpreted the phrase among the several states to exclude transactions that occur wholly within a state. So when a transaction occurs wholly within a state, they use the state ID, calling you a resident of the state and not a United States citizen, because that's where the interest lies. And they are holding the state interest as it opposes the federal interest, because they have a different view on those tax situations and what Congress can or cannot do in the state. In the state. If they can dispute what the Congress can or can't do in the state, do you suppose they're going to be able to conflict with what you can do in or out of the state? That's what they're posing. But if you know the true jurisdiction of exclusive jurisdiction, then that means it excludes the transactions that occur wholly within the state. Why does it exclude them? Because they never maintained exclusive jurisdiction of the federal inland marine jurisdiction. Area Office 32 CFR 1602.4. Hope you remember it. Selective Service is responsible for all administrations and operations. Let's look at the next one. Oops. Oops, that's not the right one either. Let me go all the way back out here. There we go. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 7. The Congress shall have power to establish post offices and post roads. The Articles of Confederation provided Congress with the sole and exclusive power of establishing post offices. During the Constitutional Convention, the Committee on Detail proposed similar language providing that the legislature of the United States shall have the power to establish post offices. The legislature of the United States. So now the post offices established through the United States, that's a corporate entity. Now we see that the United States as a corporate entity is a military installation as well. Company A, Company B, Company C. They're the holders of the records of all of the companies organized under their laws. That is your commercial connection with the military post offices. It is promulgated as exclusive because there's privity. You get to exclude third-party interveners. Let's go to the next one. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 14. The Congress shall have power to make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces. Inland Marine Installation as a post office is a naval force. And that is who regulates the land. And they delegate that authority to the Army outside of federal exclusive zones. Scope of the congressional and executive authority to prescribe the rules for the governance of the military is broad and subject to great deference by the judiciary. The administration sits under all of it. I'm telling you, they're telling you, and I'm just reiterating, the judiciary is a military branch, and the judicial determination has to be made first before you can fall to the administrative, executive, legislative, and judicial state administration. It's an impossibility. You are not subject. You have to volunteer. And then upon volunteering, if they can't use you, if you're not necessary, then they can't deem you necessary. The Supreme Court recognizes that the military is by necessity a specialized society separate from civilian society. That the military constitutes a specialized community governed by a separate discipline. They have a different disciple. From that of the civilian, and that Congress is permitted to legislate both with greater breadth and greater flexibility when prescribing the rules by which military society shall be governed than it is when prescribing rules for civilian, because the military's prescription is much stricter and as it operates on a much stronger moral basis. The military, like I said, goes to the chaplain for decisions on spirituality and life and death. Let's go on to the next one. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. To exercise exclusive legislation. In other words, that's where they get to write things. The legislated letter of the law. To exercise exclusive writing. In other words, they get to write documentation under a copyright and trademark and make it patent. Put it in the public. That's all you got to do to make something patent is put it in the public, and then it is patent. It is observable. And this is all their claim is. To exercise exclusive legislation, ability to write a written word in all cases whatsoever over such district, not exceeding 10 miles square. Not exceeding 10 miles square. So you tell me how that exclusive jurisdiction extends beyond any postal road or any needful place and building if it in fact is not using if it is in fact using an address that allows for exclusive jurisdiction by control and entry for the very title held by the administration of that very judicial system. Anybody, please explain this to me. I'm so sick and tired of people not understanding and comprehending the plain language that's right there. It's easy to understand. You might need to take a little time to unlearn some of the things you've learned like I did and go back and start relearning like I did. And I'm telling you, you start out at 5 years old going to school around there, and you graduate when you're 18. That's about 13 years. You already did 13 years of education. Why are you afraid to do a little bit more to enhance it? 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. Are you too lazy? Are you caught up in the cognitive dissonance of the convenience and propaganda of watching somebody else on some boob tube thinking their life is grand and you want to model yours after theirs? Oh, wait a minute. I hear the lights, or I hear the sirens and I see the lights. Let me go check and see what that is. Oh, goodness. They're arresting one of the guys down the street a couple blocks. Oh, well. Go back and sit in front of that tube again, munching down all that processed food and drinking that poison. The next night, the same fucking thing. You're watching the boob tube. You got done. You did your day's work as a Betty Cuck slave. Now you're back home with head of the household. You got to figure out how you're going to live your life. So you go back and watch somebody else's life on the boob tube. And lo and behold, you see them lights and you hear them sirens. You look out and they're down here on the other end of the block arresting some guy. The next night, the same fucking thing. They're across the street. The next night, they're over here at your neighbors. When do you think they're coming for you? You keep using their address, you dummies. You big dummy corporations. Well, and that's why you got to go above the United States. And everybody keeps wanting to placate that they got to go to the United States government for this and that. When it comes to the Postal Service here, and then I'm going straight to the International Bureau if this isn't resolved this next time. Pentagon, Adjutant General, Governor, President, UN, Director General of the International Postal Union. Yeah, I'm done. I have no other means to express it because these people keep calling people sovereign citizen, don't even know what the definition of sovereign citizen is. And then you have the Office of Inspector General of HUD posting on a public site that a sovereign citizen uses scripture. Sovereign citizen uses constitutional law. Sovereign citizen uses statute law. Sovereign citizen uses UCC. Excuse me? Isn't that what all these lawyers are using in the courts and stuff with case law and everything, according to this and according to the First Amendment right and Fifth Amendment right and the statute here? Excuse the fuck out of me. But I think somebody's confused, and I don't think it's me. I think it's the Office of Inspector General of HUD, and he obviously is going against the United States, who has a constitution. The very people that give him a job. I find that insane, incompetent, and a definite sign of Dunning-Kruger effect. Sickening. Again, you're not understanding. The people shall address their grievances with Congress. Ingress, egress, that's in and out, and Congress is with. Gress meaning walk, meaning sojourn. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and for even ever for more. That's my Congress. The Postal Congress is the president of all the nations. So yes, it is a communication with Congress. Which Congress? Think. You're stuck in the Constitution of the United States and its Congress. Where does that Congress come from? It comes from a postal Congress. And every nation's leader poses scripture and says you have a right to counsel. And that is the original Congress. Anyway, God holds them accountable. I can't. All I can do is keep speaking the truth. And like I've said before, come arrest me and throw me in jail. I'm not going to stop. Just like Paul says, I'm not going to stop running my mouth. You're going to have to put a fucking a speculum in my mouth to force feed me, because that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to run my motherfucking mouth 24 fucking hours a day, 7 days a week, 12 months a year, the rest of my motherfucking life. I'm done. Not going to do it. Senators give a dual oath. They pledge allegiance to Israel. Isaiah 43:1. Fear not, for I am the Lord's. He has called me by thy name. I am his. 44:5. One shall say, I am the Lord's. Another shall call himself by the name Jacob. Another shall subscribe unto his, or with his hand unto the Lord, and surname himself by the name Israel. Why do you suppose they take that oath? Because God shew his oath unto the children. And anybody that accepts that oath, he gives you that same immutable counsel. Hebrews 6:13. Anyway, folks, you know I love you, but I don't give a fuck whether you love me back or not. So be God blessed. I'll be back in a little bit where we're going to do some discussion on things and clear some things up. So we'll see you in a bit.